The recent Pirate Software drama is without a doubt the most viral gaming drama of all time.
As much as you're angry right now, of course I ran. You weren't paying attention to party resources, you overpulled, and you weren't paying attention to where the boss was. That's not on me.
Asmongold, Tyler One, Soda Poppin', all were involved, and this thing blew up like nothing I'd ever seen. I thought it'd be interesting to use Google's new AI tool called Notebook LM to try to break down the drama and get a better understanding of the situation. Let's grab some news articles that have been written on the drama for a nice overview. Let's get a couple Reddit threads on the situation to gauge how people are reacting. And let's grab some tweets directly from Pirate Software himself to make sure we get his point of view. Now let's create the audio and see what comes out. I present you Google AI Breaks Down the Pirate Software Drama.
All right, strap in, everybody. Today we are diving deep into a world where the stakes are high, the drama is real, and the only thing more brutal than the bosses is the court of public opinion. We're talking World of Warcraft hardcore.
Yeah.
And the controversy that shook the community.
What I think is so interesting about this particular case is that it really reveals a lot about some core values of the hardcore WoW community, things like trust and responsibility.
Right.
And really that delicate balance between individual skill and reliance on your group.
And to really get why this whole thing blew up, you have to understand hardcore WoW. Imagine playing World of Warcraft, but with permadeath. One wrong move, one bad encounter, poof, your character is gone. Forever.
Yeah, it's a high-stakes game mode that attracts a certain type of player. You know, someone who thrives under pressure, who enjoys pushing their limits, and who understands that every single decision could have permanent consequences. It's no wonder this mode has become so popular with streamers and content creators.
Yeah. Speaking of streamers, this brings us to our main character in this saga, Jason, PirateSoftware Hall, a Twitch streamer who, at least until recently, was known for his, well, supposed WoW expertise. But a single disastrous dungeon run changed everything. And we're going to unpack exactly what happened, why it blew up into such a massive controversy, and what it reveals about the dynamics of these online communities.
So set the scene for us.
Yeah.
What exactly went down in this fateful dungeon run?
So PirateSoftware was running a dungeon called Dire Maul North with OnlyFangs. This is a guild of hardcore WoW streamers. Everything was going relatively smoothly until they hit this challenging pull, a group of enemies that proved to be a little bit more than they bargained for. And to make matters worse, things went south very quickly, which led to chaos and the death of 2 players, level 60 characters.
Okay, so weeks of progress gone in an instant. That's got to be a gut punch in hardcore WoW.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing the real drama started after the wipe, right?
Yeah, the aftermath of this disastrous pull is when fingers started pointing, and a lot of the blame landed on PirateSoftware. He was playing a mage character at the time. He was accused of roaching out, which is essentially ditching his group instead of using his abilities to help them survive.
Now, roaching out might sound like a minor offense to people who aren't familiar with hardcore WoW.
Right.
But trust me, it's a huge deal.
Oh, yeah.
It's seen as this fundamental breach of trust, almost like abandoning your tribe when facing danger.
Right, and that's where the controversy really starts to brew, because PirateSoftware completely denied any wrongdoing. He claimed that he was simply following the run command given by the group leader, who was called Yamato. In his view, he was just doing what he was told, end of story.
But that's not where the story ends, is it?
Not even close, because his response, which a lot of people saw as very arrogant and lacking any accountability, really just ignited a firestorm of criticism.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it was like pouring gasoline on an already smoldering fire. He even tweeted a threat saying that he would report streamers who were criticizing him to both Blizzard and Twitch, claiming that they were organizing height raids against him.
Now, that's a fascinating turn of events. So we've got the dungeon run gone wrong, accusations of betrayal, and now threats of retaliation.
Yeah.
This is where the drama spills out of the game and into the larger online world.
Exactly. And remember, this is all happening in a community where your reputation is made or broken online. So what was the fallout? Well, first, PirateSoftware was kicked out of OnlyFangs. Then the backlash from the WoW community was swift and brutal. People were not happy at all.
So where do we go from here? We've got the incident, a very defensive response, and a community that's divided. What does this tell us about the dynamics at play here?
Well, to really understand that, we have to dig into the reactions and the arguments that were happening from the community itself. And probably no better place to do that than the Asmongold and Rod Hardcore Reddit threads.
Okay, good places to start.
Yeah. These threads really offer this fascinating window into the range of opinions on the whole drama.
So let's start with Razmangold. What were some of the key sentiments and arguments coming out of that community?
Well, the opinions were all over the place.
Okay.
Some users fiercely defended PirateSoftware, saying that he was being scapegoated and that he was just following orders. Others condemned his lack of accountability and his aggressive response. They saw it as just typical streamer arrogance.
It was a real clash of perspectives.
Oh, yeah. And there was one particularly interesting thread where users started comparing the situation to, wait for it, ancient tribes.
Okay.
I know, right?
Interesting.
So one user, the Rex writer, argued that PirateSoftware didn't do anything wrong because he was following the leader's command. They actually said, and I'm quoting here, "It makes no sense that people are blaming him when his party is the one that escalated the situation."
I can see where they're coming from, appealing to that sense of hierarchy and following orders.
Right.
But I bet that didn't go unchallenged in a community like Razmangold.
Oh, you're exactly right. Another user, the Afterlady6, countered with a really strong analogy. They said, if shit like this happened when out hunting with your tribe, nobody would ever go out to hunt with a roach like that ever again. You don't just ditch your group and leave them for dead.
Wow, that's a really strong image.
Yeah.
And it speaks to that deep-seated instinct for loyalty and trust, especially in a high-stakes situation.
Yeah.
It seems like this idea of roaching as a betrayal of trust really hit home for a lot of people in the WoW community.
Yeah, it really taps into that primal fear of being abandoned by your group when you need them most.
Exactly. So we've got this really interesting mix of opinions on PirateSoftware's actions. But it sounds like the real outrage came from his response and his perceived lack of accountability. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. And it wasn't just anonymous Redditors calling him out. Savix, who's another prominent YW streamer, posted this scathing analysis of the situation on Twitter, and he did not hold back.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What was Savix's take on the whole thing?
Well, he argued that the real problem wasn't the in-game actions themselves, but PirateSoftware's behavior afterward.
Okay.
He basically called him out for being arrogant, lacking empathy, and basically just being a jerk about the whole thing.
Ouch. That's got a sting coming from a fellow streamer.
Yeah.
But, Savix makes a valid point, doesn't he? It's not just about what you do. It's about how you own up to it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're a public figure with a following.
Exactly. And Savix actually even pointed out the hypocrisy of PirateSoftware's response, contrasting it with his previous statements about the importance of teamwork and a mage's responsibility to help their group. It was like Savix was saying, you can't preach teamwork and then ditch your team when things get tough.
Yeah, it's almost like his actions contradicted his carefully crafted online persona.
Right. And remember, PirateSoftware had built this reputation as a WoW expert, somebody who understood the game inside and out.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole incident seemed to shatter that image for a lot of people. It was a major blow to his credibility. So we've got Savix calling him out, the Reddit community's in an uproar. Did anyone come to his defense? Well, interestingly enough, even Sodapoppin, who's the guild leader of OnlyFangs and who himself was facing some criticism for his decisions during the dungeon run,
Great.
he felt compelled to weigh in.
Okay.
So while he was critical of PirateSoftware's actions, he also condemned the really extreme responses like death threats
Oh, wow.
that were being directed at PirateSoftware by some members of the community.
Yeah, that's an important point to bring up. Even when someone makes a mistake, the response should never escalate to harassment or threats.
Absolutely. So Sodapoppin highlighted the need for more nuanced conversations even when disagreements happen. He essentially said, yes, PirateSoftware messed up, but let's not lose our humanity in the process.
So we've covered the incident, the blame, the backlash, and the calls for accountability. But there's another layer to this story that we need to explore. One that might explain why this seemingly minor incident blew up into such a massive controversy. And it all comes down to one simple command: run.
The run command? What's so complicated about that?
Well, in the context of hardcore WoW, where permadeath is always a threat, the run command can actually be interpreted in a few different ways. For some, it means every man for himself. A desperate scramble for survival where individual preservation trumps any sense of loyalty to the group.
So it's like the ultimate test of self-reliance versus teamwork.
Exactly. And this difference in interpretation is at the heart of the debate surrounding PirateSoftware's actions. Was he justified in prioritizing his own character's survival, or did he abandon his group when they needed him most? You see, in hardcore WoW, where death is permanent, the run command can be interpreted in different ways. For some, it means every man for himself. a desperate scramble for survival,
Right.
where your own survival comes before any loyalty to the group.
Okay, so it's like the ultimate test of self-reliance versus teamwork.
Exactly. And this difference in interpretation is at the heart of the debate surrounding Pirate Software's actions.
Hmm.
Was he justified in putting his own character's survival first? Or did he abandon his group when they needed him most?
So how did this debate actually play out in the community? Did we see those different interpretations reflected in those Reddit threads?
Absolutely. The Raw Hardcore subreddit in particular had some really intense discussions about the ethics of the run command.
Mm.
Some players argued that in hardcore WoW W, self-preservation is paramount. They believe that run basically absolves you of any responsibility to your group. It's a signal to prioritize your own escape, even if it means leaving others behind.
That's a pretty harsh interpretation. Did anyone push back on that?
Oh, definitely.
Hmm.
Others argue that even in hardcore, there's this unspoken code of conduct. They felt that the run command should be used strategically, like as a way to regroup, and coordinate a retreat,
Right.
not as a free pass to abandon your teammates.
It's so interesting how one word can cause such a philosophical debate.
Yeah.
It's like this tiny example of the bigger tension between individual survival and the collective good.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And this tension is just amplified in hardcore WoW W, where the consequences of failure are so permanent.
Right, right. So where does Pirate Software fall on this spectrum of interpretations? Did he ever clarify what run meant to him in that moment?
Unfortunately, he never explicitly addressed it. And that ambiguity only added fuel to the fire.
Right.
Some people speculated that maybe he panicked, reverted to that survival at all costs mentality. Others questioned if he really understood the unspoken rules of hardcore WoW W despite his supposed expertise.
It's almost like this incident exposed a crack in his carefully crafted image, wasn't it?
Exactly. And that crack widened as more and more people started to scrutinize his past behavior, looking for patterns that might explain his actions in the dungeon.
Oh, interesting. Did they find anything?
Well, several users in the Reddit threads pointed out that Pirate Software had a history of making strong statements about game preservation and the importance of supporting developers. He often positioned himself as this champion of the gaming community, someone who understood the value of collaboration and respect.
So how did that play into the drama surrounding the dungeon run?
Well, some people saw his actions in the dungeon and his defensiveness afterward as a complete contradiction of his previous beliefs. It was like he was saying one thing but doing another.
It's that whole do as I say, not as I do problem.
Right.
Which can be so damaging to someone's credibility, especially online where authenticity is so valued.
Exactly. And that sense of dissonance, that gap between words and actions, might explain why the community's reaction was so strong. It wasn't just about a dungeon run gone wrong. It was about a perceived betrayal of trust.
So we've got this clash of interpretations over the run command, a perceived contradiction between Pirate Software's words and actions, and a community struggling with questions of responsibility and accountability. Where do we go from here? I mean, is there any way to make sense of this whole mess?
To understand the intensity of the reaction, I think we need to zoom out a little.
Okay.
We've talked about the hardcore WoW W community, but there's another factor at play here that's crucial to understanding the full scope of the drama: parasocial relationships.
Parasocial relationships, what do those have to do with a dungeon run in World of Warcraft?
More than you might think. In online streaming, viewers often develop these really intense one-sided relationships with their favorite streamers.
Okay.
They spend hours watching their streams, engaging in their chats, and they start to feel like they're part of a community.
Right, it's like a virtual friendship.
Exactly. And these relationships, while they can be positive and supportive, can also create a sense of vulnerability. When a streamer does something that goes against the image they've built online, it can feel like a personal betrayal to their viewers.
So you're saying that Pirate Software's actions in the dungeon run and his behavior afterward might have felt like a betrayal to his viewers.
That's exactly what I'm suggesting. It's not just about a mistake in a game. It's about violating the trust that was built up over countless hours of streaming, chatting, interacting online.
And that violation of trust is like magnified because of the hardcore nature of the game, right?
Right.
Because it's not just a virtual character that died, it's weeks of progress and effort just gone.
Precisely. And that sense of loss for the players in the dungeon run and the viewers who are following their journey likely contributed to the intensity of the reaction.
So how does this concept of parasocial relationships help us understand the broader conversation around this whole thing?
Well, it sheds light on why this seemingly small incident caused such a huge wave of criticism and debate. It wasn't just about game mechanics or a command. It was about a perceived breach of trust, that unspoken agreement between streamers and their viewers.
That's a fascinating insight. So we've got the hardcore WoW community's emphasis on trust and accountability layered with the intensity of parasocial relationships, all converging around this one dramatic event. It's no wonder this blew up into such a huge controversy.
It's a perfect storm of factors, all colliding in the digital arena. But there's one more piece of the puzzle we need to examine. The accusations of hate raiding that PirateSoftware made against other streamers.
Right.
This is where things get even more complicated and where the lines between legitimate criticism and online harassment become blurred.
You know, it's interesting how this whole situation highlights the complexities of online interactions. On one hand, you have the right to criticize someone's actions, especially when they're a public figure.
Right.
But on the other hand, there's this line between fair criticism and straight-up harassment.
It's a tough balance for sure, and it's something I think the online world is still grappling with,
Yeah.
How do you create spaces where people feel comfortable expressing their opinions, even negative ones, without resorting to personal attacks or harmful behavior?
Right. So let's unpack these hate raid accusations a bit. What exactly did PirateSoftware allege was happening?
So in that tweet, he claimed that other streamers were sending their viewers to harass him on Twitch.
Okay.
He accused them of orchestrating these hate raids, coordinated attacks where tons of viewers flood a streamer's chat with negative comments, spam, even threats.
Yeah, that's a serious accusation and one that carries a lot of weight, especially in a community that's already kind of on edge.
Yeah.
But was there actually any evidence to support his claim?
That's where things get a little murky. When you look at the Reddit threads, several users actually disputed the idea that these were organized hate raids coming from other streamers. They argued that the negative reaction was more likely a spontaneous outpouring of anger and disappointment from viewers who were genuinely upset by PirateSoftware's actions and his defensiveness afterward.
So it was more like this collective expression of frustration rather than an organized attack.
Exactly. Think of it like this. When a celebrity makes a mistake publicly, they're often bombarded with criticism on social media.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean there's someone behind it, orchestrating a hate campaign. It's more likely a reflection of the collective outrage or disappointment of their fan base.
Right. That makes sense. But didn't some users actually point out that PirateSoftware's own behavior might have been adding fuel to the fire?
Absolutely. One user on Razmongold said something like, every time he talks about it, he just gives those people more to talk about. It's a feedback loop.
Right.
They were suggesting that his defensiveness and refusal to acknowledge any wrongdoing was only amplifying the negative reaction.
It's like he was digging himself deeper with every tweet, every statement. And remember, he had previously threatened to use his connections at Blizzard to get streamers banned.
Yes, and that was a really controversial statement. It seemed to confirm the fears of some viewers that streamers hold too much power within these platforms. It fed into this idea of streamer privilege.
Right.
This idea that streamers are above the rules and can silence dissent without any consequences.
But didn't some users push back against that idea as well?
They did. Several users pointed out that there's a big difference between reporting genuine harassment and trying to silence legitimate criticism.
Right.
They questioned whether PirateSoftware was really being targeted by hate raids or if he was just conflating criticism with harassment.
It's an important distinction to make,
Yeah.
Criticism, even if it's harsh or uncomfortable, is not the same as harassment.
Exactly. And while hate raids are a real problem online, it's important to avoid using the term lightly or as a way to just deflect legitimate criticism.
So where does that leave us? It seems like the truth about those hate raid claims is still up for debate. But what is clear is this whole situation really exposes the sometimes toxic nature of online interaction. The speed at which rumors spread, the intensity of the reactions, the tendency to jump to conclusions. It's just a recipe for chaos.
It really is like a digital wildfire, fueled by outrage and speculation.
Yeah.
And it highlights the challenges of having, healthy communication and respectful disagreements in online spaces.
So what can we learn from all of this? How can we as individuals navigate these complex and often volatile online spaces in a way that's constructive rather than destructive?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
I think it starts by recognizing that online interactions are ultimately human interactions. And we need to approach these spaces with the same empathy, respect, and understanding that we would bring to any in-person conversation.
Right. It's so easy to get caught up in the anonymity of the internet and forget that there are real people on the other side of the screen.
Exactly. It's also important to remember that criticism, even when it's harsh, can be an opportunity to learn and grow.
Okay.
Instead of getting defensive, try to understand where the other person's coming from. Ask yourself, why are they reacting this way? Is there any truth to what they're saying?
That's a great point. It's about listening with an open mind, even when it's hard.
Right. And it's about recognizing that everyone makes mistakes. No one's perfect. We all mess up sometimes.
Yeah.
The important thing is to learn from those mistakes, apologize when you need to, and try to do better next time.
That's a powerful message. So to wrap things up, what are the key takeaways from this deep dive into the pirate software WoW drama?
I think the big takeaway is that online communities, while offering these incredible opportunities for connection and collaboration, are also prone to the same pitfalls and challenges that we face offline.
Right.
Things like miscommunication, misunderstandings, and conflict are bound to happen.
It really is like a microcosm of society, with all its complexities and contradictions.
Exactly. And to navigate these spaces well, we need to be mindful of our words and actions, approach disagreements with respect and empathy, and remember that behind every screen name is another person.
Well said. And I think this deep dive has given everyone a lot to think about, both for those who are active in online communities and those who are just curious about how these spaces work.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder that the internet isn't this separate world with its own rules. It's a reflection of us, both the good and the bad.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the heart of online drama.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and game on.
And remember, always be kind.